North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
We're pleased to welcome you back to the second week of our two-week series dealing with Native American culture. And last week we had this wonderful discussion on the Institute of American Indian Arts, which is located in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's a wonderful college for students from around the country that are trained to really help us appreciate and celebrate the art. And our guest is back with us again this week, and we're going to look at another center, and that is the Autry National Center of Los Angeles. And our guest is a member of one of the committees that deals with that. Our guest is Jeannie Givens. We welcome her back. She is a former state representative in the state of Idaho, serving the 5 northern counties of Idaho. She served with distinction on the Board of Trustees at North Idaho College and was chair of that board. And she is now chair of the Institute of American Indian Arts Board. She serves on a number of other national boards, and she also is a consultant and teacher with one of the schools of the Coeur d'Alene tribe, and she has 2 children, and her husband practices law in Coeur d'Alene, a busy lady and a great friend. Welcome back, Jeannie Givens.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We look forward to this subject also, and we welcome our panel back. First of all, Janelle Burke, an attorney in the state of Idaho, and next to her is Erna Reinhardt, who is the Director of Public Relations at North Idaho College, and we shall invite Janelle Burke to commence the questioning.
Jeannie, welcome back to the program. Would you first please tell us what is the Autry Museum, the Autry National Museum, and then also the second part of that, and you can correct me if the name is wrong there, it may be the Autry National Center, but please tell us what it is. That's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, where is it located? Maybe some of our folks will be visiting the warmer climates this winter, and they would like to know, where can they go to obtain an experience with that center?
Well, where visitors can go to get a divergent, exciting multicultural experience, if they're in the Los Angeles area, is to go to the Autry National Center. The Autry Center used to be called the Autry Center of the West, and they merged with the Southwest Museum. And the Southwest Museum has a fabulous collection of artifacts and basketry and all kinds of wonderful historical items. And that Southwest Museum has over 3,000 baskets in it. And to be able to view this collection that is so massive is incredible. It's just amazing. So, and they've also merged with the Women's Museum of the West. So it's now called the Autry National Center, and their goal is to present all facets of life of the West. And I like their approach with the multiculturalism. Their exhibits encompass many cultures. One that is up now is about the Spanish, and they have ongoing exhibits and activities concerning Native Americans, not just the California tribes, but taking more of a national look at Native Americans and the history of the Asians in this country, and of course the profound effect that missionaries had in their coming to the West and the experiences of the early settlers. So the reason why this is an important museum is because it's beginning to use a practice that I think is very good. It's a museum that is evolving. They are wanting Native Americans to come and serve in an advisory capacity as they tell the Native American story. Now, many museums have never done that before. They've gone ahead and decided what is important. So maybe a person going to a museum might see an entire wall of arrowheads, and that would be the cultural experience. Well, the Autry Center goes far beyond that, and their intent is that the viewer would get a holistic feeling, from history to culture to music to spirit to a look at what the future is for contemporary Indians. And I think that that's a very fair and a just way to present Native Americans. They have invited a stewardship council of 6 people to serve in that capacity, to look at programming, to look at publications, to look at the new way of presenting the American Indian. And unfortunately, museums in America have been had been stuck in one place, and that was always looking at the Indian through the lens of the past, that Indians are archaeological, that they're old, that they're bones, that they're old arrowheads, and that is about the experience that most people and most children took away from trying to learn what Native Americans are about. So the Autry is, to me, a very living, live museum, and they're wanting to tackle some of the tough issues with the tough questions. They often serve as a place where ideas can come together, where you look at the pros and the cons of different things. For instance, how did Hollywood treat the presentation of the American Indian in its productions, and where do we want to go from there? Another important question, what are the pros and cons of Indian gaming, the casino movement? Is that good? Is it bad? And have in-depth conversations. So the Autry Center would be the place where conversations would be launched, and meaningful conversations and meaningful learning. And also in looking at the Spanish and the Hispanic culture of this country. We do know that within this next century, the Spanish-speaking population is going to exceed 50% of this country, and the Autry Center has a place there. And it's again learning more and more about this wonderful, diverse country.
Arnold Reinhardt.
Jeannie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us where the name for the Autry National Center came from.
The Autry Center has a very proud past, and it was founded by the actor Gene Autry. And we knew him from hundreds of black and white movies. They called them the B movies. But he had a folksy way of presenting life in the West, and there was always a wry little happy ending. And it was quite innocent. But in his presentation of Indians in those days, he was making a very concerted attempt to present a human side of the Native American. And often in Hollywood depictions, Indians were depicted so wooden, as though they weren't complex individuals, as though they couldn't speak, as though they didn't have ideas that were worthwhile. But Gene Autry left a legacy with us and a wonderful purpose to promote the understanding of the Native American through art, through a serious analyzing of history, and also with serving that catalyst to be the conversation place where we talk about the future. So Gene Autry and his wonderful wife, Mr. Autry, passed away about 8 years ago, and his wife Jackie Autry has been the driving force of having the Stewardship Council, the Native American Stewardship Council. They are planning on building an entire wing devoted to the Native American, and not just natives of California, but natives from all over this country. So that will be very exciting, and they have a great collection to support that. And with that, they want guidance, and they elicit our opinions on how that building should be designed, and working with the architect, and working with what the future of this museum will be. Now, you don't get an invitation very frequently to go talk about a $25 million building, and we are very proud to work side by side with the Autry in planning for the future.
We know you as being very involved in the Coeur d'Alene community, and people know you statewide from your years in the legislature down in Boise. And we heard about last week your involvement with the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico. But how did you get involved in the Autry National Center? How did that come about?
Well, as they were putting this stewardship council idea together, I've been the chairman of the board of the Institute of American Indian Arts, and they have wanted to formulate a formal relationship. And so I received a wonderful phone call and an invitation. I thought, well, okay, I'll check it out. And from there, I was very captivated by the sincerity and the scholarly level in which they operate, that I thought, this is something I want to be a part of. So I'm very proud to be able to serve on the Stewardship Council. Another thing that happened that I'm very proud of and excited about is one of their programs is called Young Native Playwrights. And I've seen their plays. They're wonderful. So I've connected with the program manager, Tom Kellogg, and Scott Kratz, and I'm proud to announce that the Young Native Playwrights of the Autry Center will be coming to the Coeur d'Alene Reservation, and they will be working with young Native students to help them write their stories. The stories are going to be laid out in animal format, like Native American stories, but the student can take that anywhere they want to go. At the very end of that experience, we'll have a performance, and I want all of you to come. And I hope that there's an opportunity for us to work with North Idaho College and have these plays come for a visit here and over to Spokane.
I can confirm that right now by saying that the Popcorn Farm North Idaho College will invite them. You just call me, and we'll set up a wonderful function. That's wonderful news, and it goes back to last week too, and the Institute in New Mexico. What is so empowering and so enriching is this interchange, and so the more institutions and organizations that do that, the more enriched we all are. And so, but for us who have this wonderful real love for the Coeur d'Alene tribe, it's so great news to know that this kind of activity is coming to share, and so you stay in touch.
Yes, so we'll look forward to that next fall.
Oh, that will be wonderful.
And,
we're taping this show in October of the 2004, but hopefully we'll be still doing this, and we can have you back to, our viewers are special to us, and so we can talk about and advertise with them and other sources, and Erna being Director of Public Relations, we can certainly get the word out, and we'll look forward to that.
Great.
The other thing that's happened with your generosity is that we have this time 3 slides that are brought to us for your discussion about the center in Los Angeles, the Autry National Center, and so I'll ask our staff to put up the first one, and you can share with us.
The Autry Center has a beautiful collection of paintings from George Catlin. And he was a painter, turn of the century, who went around and, not a photographer, but he was recording in that way as though a photographer does, in painting a changing way of life as he knew it. He knew that Native Americans would be changing. So we at the Autry are very lucky to have this vast collection of paintings, and the George Catlin paintings are usually the cornerstone of a lot of the exhibits there, so the public gets to enjoy them. And they're not just the tribes of the West, they're from all over. So
he's so well known too.
Yes,
his work is really
and his work, of course, is in the Smithsonian and the leading galleries of the East. So that is the basis of this incredible collection that they have.
It's wonderful, and we have a second one here.
They have a program called Native Voices, and this incorporates young Native urban Indians living in the Los Angeles area. They get together and they sometimes they'll just read a script, but this next one will be a production in Los Angeles, and I believe it's going to be in March of this next year.
Of 2005.
Of 2005. It's called Kino and Teresa. And this is actually a story about the Pueblo Revolt, but it's told in the format of Romeo and Juliet. So we have a Spanish woman falling in love with a Pueblo man, and I am so excited about this. James Lujan, a young, progressive director and writer, has written the script for this, and so I'll be there. I'll be there in the front row for that. It's going to be just terrific. So the Autry does a lot in terms of promoting young people who wouldn't normally get a chance to put on a production. So they are just very, very generous with
and it's
their
going to lead
efforts.
to those young people doing remarkable things with that kind of support and initiation. And we have a third one here.
And this is the formal Native Playwright Program. Young people are brought in, and they're given an intensive experience in writing and playwriting. And from playwriting, you end up with a script. With a script, it might turn into a television series. It might turn into a Hallmark Hall of Fame. It might turn into a movie. You never know. But I think that right now, in this day and age, people are interested in learning more about natives. And we certainly do have a story to tell. So I'm pleased that all of these creative opportunities are there for people.
Thank you, too, for bringing along those different slides, because that is really revealing. Our viewers can kind of go on a visit with you that way. I believe, too, before we did the show, that you had given our staff some websites. And it's very important for our viewers to be able to get in contact and be able to follow up. So could you share that with us now, or a phone number, or somehow they can get in touch with, like the center in Los Angeles?
There is the Southwest Museum. That is www.southwestmuseum.org. And then there is the Museum of the American West. This is their website, but it's www.museumoftheamericanwest.org. And then with the Institute of American Indian Arts, that is www.iaiancad.org. So visit the websites. I think you'll be pretty intrigued.
Well, see, and they put some of them on the screen too. That's really helpful, because we just love for our viewers to be able to connect with what they're interested in, and so that's very much appreciated. Janelle Burke.
Those websites, of course, would give you information, or the viewer information, if they're going to visit the area, about how to access the museum. And they would give them hours of operation. And then they would probably also give them something about the programs and exhibits. The programs and exhibits, no doubt, change from time to time. So can you tell us about some that might be upcoming?
Well, one that I think is very interesting is it's the West and how it was depicted via Hollywood. That I found very, very interesting. They have several of the old costumes, and I mean, there is this Hollywood connection to this museum too, of course. Although this museum deliberately does not want this to be an Autry tribute to Gene Autry, it is to the West and not him. So that is very interesting. There are beautiful sculpture gardens, and then of course the George Catlin is open, and that will be on for a long, long time. I think up to a year. So that would be a good one to see. And then the activities, there may be a play running over the weekend or on a Thursday evening, and then there might be discussions, panel discussions. So it's good to visit the website so you know exactly what's going on.
Thank you.
Many of us, Jeannie, travel with our children, and so I just want to do a follow-up question from Janelle's previous question about are there any exhibits that you know of that would be of specific interest to younger people?
Yes, all of it would be. The one downstairs that I was talking about, the tribute to Hollywood, is a young person can actually hop on a saddle and have their a movie flowing behind them, and they can pretend that they're galloping. Yes,
Bring on their video camera, they can go home.
Right. So the West comes to life. But also, it's real important. There is a current exhibit ongoing right now, and it is about. There's always an exploration of the connection of the California missions, and we experience the missionaries up here. That questioning of the dimension, we have to ask the questions, was it a good thing in light of the intense spirituality that Native Americans had and have, and the missionary movement, and that whole effect upon Native Americans and how they feel about religion and spirituality today. That's always a good thing. So yes, there are lots of exhibits ongoing.
Excellent.
Something that you excited me about when I was asking you to do this program, and personalities are very important in success of these institutes and centers and all, and you indicated that the board members, you're on that council to advise them, but they have a board that governs the Autry National Center, and Jackie Autry is very involved. But you indicated that these are people with sources of income. Share a little bit about how a board like that can make a center so much more expansive, and I know one of the board members has been so generous, I believe, with over $23 million contribution. So share a little bit of the inner workings of the board itself, and give them some credit for this advancement expansion.
Oh, yes. The board of directors, it's a very large board, And it's over 100 people on the board, but it's the executive committee that really gets the work done. And I've had the pleasure of meeting many of the people on the executive committee. And these are people who have probably had a lot of success in life, financial success. And what intrigues them about the Autry Center is that you can redefine what a museum is, that you can bring to life what the experience is of living in the West, and it can be an experiential thing, and it can touch on all senses, and you can stimulate thought about where you want to go and what you want to be, because we know that an educated, thoughtful individual builds a better society. So I think that museums these days really have a place. So that is the intriguing part for them. Jackie Autry, who does not seek a lot of publicity, she basically is the driving force behind this wonderful museum, and she has in her heart where she wants to see these activities lead to, and she wants, of course, a more peaceful existence among the diverse people that we have, and a more interested, questioning kind of person who wants to learn more about other people, because this new world that we're experiencing, especially in Los Angeles, they see very clearly that this is the browning of America. It's happening throughout the country. And we're going to have a different kind of country, and we need to understand it. And I think that Mrs. Autry comes from the point of view that museums have a place to generate the tough questions, to talk about difference in a peaceful way.
With her connection along with her late husband, Gene Autry, and Hollywood being there now, I do think the center is also, isn't it, somewhat helped by some rather well-known personalities.
Oh, yes.
They tapped that Hollywood fame to help with the center.
Sure. What's intriguing, of course, you read the letterhead and then you see the plaques on the wall, and there have been many famous people who have supported the Autry, and common names are Mr. and Mrs. Frank Sinatra, and founding members, and Clint Eastwood, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Kevin Costner. Those are the kinds of people who see a real value in having a place such as this.
They're quite well known.
Yeah, they're a little well known.
Especially the governor of California right now. One other thing too, before the show started, we talked about different types of museums, and we've had some hints to that in the program, but would you share with our viewers, and one can't go everywhere, what kind of museums are most valuable to help us appreciate who we are versus some of the museums that you wouldn't learn as much, they're not as challenging or not as creative?
Mm-hmm. In Indian circles, there's a category, we call them the dead Indian museums. And these would not give credence to a contemporary Indian life, but these would be museums that are really locked into, say, the 1800s and not moving beyond that. So there are those kinds of museums. There are things like the Coeur d'Alene Tribe is working on a visitor center up at Cataldo. We hope that will be an interactive place to explain the tribe's connection with the first missionaries that came and the building of the museum. And it will give the visitor a sense of the village life that the people were experiencing as Father De Smet and the other priests crossed the Rockies and came there. And this was based on a premonition, on a dream that Circling Raven had experienced. He dreamed of black robes coming. So a visitor center is a good place. Cultural centers. Hispanic Cultural Center, Pueblo Cultural Centers. Those are more interactive, and there will be dancing and a lot less concerned about the history. But then there are your standard museums. The Museums of Arts and Culture has a huge Indian portion to it in Spokane. They call it the MAC. And then, of course, the Autry Center is a living, engaging museum.
And as we did on the last show, we've got to give you this opportunity. You have recently been to Washington, D.C. with finally the opening of the National Center or Museum. Tell us about that in Washington, D.C. It was a remarkable day for you and others.
On September 21st, that was the opening of the National Museum of the American Indian, and 17,000 people made a procession from the Smithsonian brick building with the towers and walked to the beautiful limestone building called the National Museum of the American Indian. There were people from all over the world, indigenous people from Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, and native people from the rainforests in Brazil, Peru, Bolivia, Mexico, and many people from Canada. And this is the only museum in the entire world that is dedicated to the Native American. And we feel that it's certainly our time long overdue, that we deserve to have a place at our nation's capital telling our story and telling our history in the way that we would like it presented. So I invite people, if they have a trip coming up to Washington, D.C., certainly get in there. You will enjoy it. It's a sensory overload. It's just beautiful. The tickets are time tickets, so you need to call in and get your time. And like all museums at the Smithsonian, they are free to the public.
And it's on the mall.
Oh, yes, it's on the mall, and it's at the southeast corner of the Capitol. And it's right next to Air and Space Museum.
Yes. And with the little time we have left, when one goes to that center, a few things they would see at the center.
They would see, of course, artifacts, but they would see them presented differently. And if there is a timeline presented the way it usually is in other museums, the timeline would be based on, the beginning of time is based on Indian creation stories. It's not when Indians, or as scientists have suggested, that they crossed over the land bridge from Mongolia to North America. And time starts when the tribes say it starts.
Well, that seems rather appropriate.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds so exciting, and I know I viewed on the day of the ceremony some of the speeches and the programs, and so it seemed like there was an electricity in the air. And congratulations to everyone who had a part in that process. And so glad you could be there. And I assume your children went with you to that.
They'll come next time.
Okay, they'll come next time. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 2 weeks, it's been our great honor to have Jeannie Givens on our program, talking basically and mostly and very importantly about American Indian culture. And we've focused on Santa Fe, New Mexico, and Los Angeles in these two programs. And we hope that you've enjoyed the programs as much as we've enjoyed bringing them to you. And again, our guest is a very busy person and served on many boards and commissions and has a family. But as a great friend for a very long time, she was most willing to do these programs, and we appreciate it. We also catalog our programs in our library at North Idaho College, and they're available for viewing. We hope you'll be with us again next week at the same time, when we will discuss yet another issue. Until then, please have a very good week. I am Tony Stewart.
Recorded on the campus of North Idaho College, Public Forum is the longest-running in-house college production on PBS. Each episode is pre-recorded live and is an educational outreach from North Idaho College. Please join us at this same time next week for another edition of Public Forum on this public television station.